Have you ever been in a meeting where someone rolls out a new productivity model and you're just sitting there thinking, yeah, but is this actually going to work? Well, today we're going to find out. We're basically going to be a fly on the wall listening in as a real team takes one of these frameworks, kind of pulls it apart, and ends up building something way, way better.
And boom, we're dropped right into the middle of the conversation. Amy asks the question that's on everyone's mind. She's not interested in the theory. She cuts right to the chase. How is this useful? What are we actually going to do with this? This is where the real work begins.
So the team's first move is to make it personal. They decide to map out what they call their working geniuses. We're talking about the specific kinds of work that don't just feel easy, but actually give them a real jolt of energy and, joy. Okay, so here are the 6 categories they're working with. It's a whole spectrum, right? From wonder, that's just pondering and asking big questions, all the way down to tenacity, which is that grit to get a project all the way to the finish line. The challenge for everyone on the team is pretty simple. Pick the 2 that feel the most like you.
So they start sketching this out on a whiteboard, creating a team map. The leader, a guy named Bull, he steps up first. He's pretty sure his 2 geniuses are invention, dreaming up new ideas, and discernment, which is all about having that good gut instinct. The team all nods along, and his name goes up on the board.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, how they actually check each other's choices. Amy says she thinks her geniuses are wonder and discernment, and right away her colleague Jasper jumps in and agrees, but with a little friendly jab, saying she definitely doesn't have tenacity. It's this mix of self-reflection and really honest, playful feedback that makes this whole thing work.
And don't worry, it's a two-way street. When it's Jasper's turn, he says his strengths are enablement, helping the team out, and tenacity, finishing the job. Amy doesn't miss a beat. She fires right back that his genius is certainly not discernment. And he just laughs and totally agrees, admitting he's a data guy who needs to rely on other people's gut feelings.
So after everyone's had their turn, this is what their final map looks like. And it's fascinating, right? You get this incredible snapshot of the team's DNA. Look at discernment. It's jam-packed with 4 people. But then you glance over at invention and galvanizing, and there's only 1 person for each. The map immediately shows them where they're really strong, and, maybe more importantly, where they might have a single point of failure.
But just when they're all feeling pretty good about their shiny new map, they hit a snag. They start to realize that knowing what you love to do, well, that's only part of the story. And Amy just nails the problem with this question. It makes perfect sense. The model helps them identify their 2 best things, their 2 geniuses. But what about the other 4? What's the word for the work you don't love? This one question just changes the entire conversation.
To figure this out, they start talking about the total opposite of a genius, and listen to the language Jasper uses here. It's so powerful. He doesn't just dislike rallying people or inventing things from scratch. He says he really, really hates it. He says inventing without guidelines makes him sick to his stomach. This isn't just a mild preference, It's a deep, physical, energy-sucking reaction.
And Amy's right there with him. For her, galvanizing and tenacity aren't just things she's not great at. They actively drain her. She says she just loses all her energy after the exciting early parts of a project are over. It's not about being lazy. It's that the work itself is like a leak in her energy tank.
And there it is. That's the big breakthrough moment. To really understand how you work, you have to know both ends of the spectrum. It's not enough to know what fills you up. You absolutely have to know what drains you dry.
So, this big realization pushes them to create something more robust, a full 3-part framework. They move way beyond that simple genius category they started out with. They decide to give a name to those energy-draining tasks, working frustrations. And I love that they specifically chose the word frustration instead of, say, misery, because it's not always about pure, seething hatred. It's about that slow, soul-crushing feeling of being worn down by a task you just have to do over and over and over again.
Okay, but that still leaves this big gap in the middle, right? What do you call all those tasks you do that you don't love, but you also don't really hate? The stuff you're just okay at.
And Quinn comes up with the perfect name for it. Working competency. These are the skills you've developed. They're the tasks you can do pretty well, at least for a while. But they're totally neutral. They don't fill your tank, but they don't really drain it either. Let's be honest, for most of us, this category is probably a huge chunk of our day-to-day job.
And here it is. The complete 3-part framework the team built together just by having a real conversation. You've got your geniuses, the stuff that gives you energy, your competencies, which are totally energy neutral, and your frustrations, which just drain you. This is so much more than a new model. It's a completely new language for talking about work.
Look, this isn't about trying to get out of doing work you don't like. We all have to do that sometimes. This is about being smarter when we design jobs and build teams. Because if you create a role that forces someone to spend most of their time in their zone of frustration, you're not just setting them up to fail, you're setting the entire team up for burnout.
So now, let's turn this back to you. You've just watched this team build a powerful new tool from scratch. So, what about your own work? What are the tasks that fall into your genius, your competency, and your frustration? Because really knowing the difference, well, that's not just a fun little exercise, it could literally change how you think about your job forever.